press and remind you that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed to Council's Facebook and YouTube pages. You've got me laughing. I would ask everyone to please turn off all mobile phones to silent mode. Please be aware that a hearing loop is available in the council chamber. Staff members are able to assist you with this at any time during the meeting. Please remain quiet in the gallery so that everyone can hear the meeting. Anyone disrupting the meeting may be asked to leave. I would also like to remind members of the public watching the live stream that a copy of the agenda and information explaining council meetings can be found on the council website. Tonight you will see we have 14 reports in open council and 0 in closed council, a transparency rate of 100%. I'll now move to reading of the prayers. I'll please ask everyone to stand and call upon Reverend Ian Savage of Holy Trinity Anglican Church, Hampton Park, to read the prayer.
This week has seen so many astonishing things. The rescue of the 12 young boys with their soccer coach from the caves in Thailand, the World Cup final between France and Croatia, which have sparked joy and thanksgiving. There have been events which have sparked astonishment and disquiet, such as the meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. And for some people, there have been unexpected, heartbreaking bereavements. We do not know what lies ahead, but in the Christian tradition, we acknowledge that our lives are in God's hands. Heavenly Father, we commit ourselves, our work, our families, and our city to you. Keep us safe in body and soul, and may our work this evening be a blessing to ourselves and to our community. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you very much, Ian. I would ask everyone to please remain standing while I call upon Robin Zeddens from the Casey Multi-Faith Network to read the faith statement.
The Casey Multi-Faith Network exists to promote peace, harmony and understanding, and to do so in partnership with Casey Council and the wider Casey community. We aim to spread knowledge and clarity about what different religions or worldviews believe, teach and practice. We believe that all members of religions and faiths have the right to peacefully practice and celebrate their own religion in a shared attitude of friendly coexistence and cooperation with all other people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robin, and thanks again, Ian. Would everyone please be seated? The City of Casey acknowledges that we are on the traditional land of the Bunurong and Wurundjeri people and pays respects to all elders past and present. I'll move on to apologies. Are there any apologies for tonight's council meeting? Councillor Saray?
Councillor Aziz.
Councillor Aziz, moved by Councillor Saray, seconded by Councillor Rowe. Is there any dissent on that apology? Then that is carried. Thank you. Is there a mover and seconder to move the suspension of the local law until I determine to reapply the local law? Moved by Councillor Flannery, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Any dissent? Then that is carried. I want to talk about Commit to Casey. As you can see, we're all wearing T-shirts again, and our Commit to Casey frame has been here for a long, long time. And I just want to thank the residents of Casey, the tens of thousands who have filled out forms that we've got on our online petition to advocate on behalf of the residents of the City of Casey to get the very best outcomes for our residents, which is why we're here, which is our core business. I also want to thank my colleagues for putting in all the time and effort. Everywhere they've been in their wards, they've been talking about Commit to Casey, get on board, all the things that we've been advocating for. The announcement received this week on the media coverage on a dual train line from Dandenong to Clyde, including a new station at Cranbourne East, a new station at Clyde, Cranbourne East and Clyde being the fastest growing area in Australia. I think one we really celebrated, and it's been put up by the opposition, and the challenge now, which we really sincerely hope the current state government put up, is the same. So it's a win-win for our residents. There are also a number of other things that we're advocating for, and we'll be travelling to Melbourne to have more meetings with politicians. I've met with quite a number myself and the officers as well. We also have federal MPs getting involved. There's an election coming up. Mr Jason Wood's doing a tour of Casey, looking at ways in which he can help for the federal election. So it's a great opportunity for this group of councillors, officers and residents to really get behind council as we push as hard as we can to fix up a lot of things, as you would know, that have needed fixing up for a long time. And already a $500 million pledge from the opposition is more than any other council's achieved. So if we can achieve that also from the current state government, it'll be something that has been sadly lacking for a long time. There's also a number of roads that upgrades that we have. We also have another number of social issues which we're advocating on for engagement programs and rehabilitation centres for those who are struggling to get off drugs, etc., etc. So it's a complete look at the whole community, and we really thank the community for getting behind it. We were so ecstatic when that announcement was made, and we hope that more and more are made with 2 elections coming up. What a great time. And again, it has been a matter of absolute people power. The amount of signatures and names getting to politicians saying this is what we need in the area. If you want our vote, this is what we need. So we really appreciate it. And I want to thank our community for getting right behind it. And we hope we get more commitments from both the major parties and other parties who now wish. We had other parties contact us saying we want to get involved in dialogue with you as well. So it's a great time. A lot of our officers' time in particular, and our CEO's time. And I congratulate our CEO who, again, worked with both sides of government to make that those things that have been put on the table come about. So I think we have a video to play with Jeff Abbott, ABBOTT, which is me, if you didn't know. But it was a
to Cranbourne, Liberal leader Matthew Guy outlined his plan to expand the reach of Melbourne's suburban rail system.
Extend the railway network now, put it in place now, and get people's habits around public transport now, rather than hoping in 20 years' time that they leave the car.
Today he pledged $487 million to extend the Cranbourne line with twin tracks and new stations at Cranbourne East and Clyde, putting rails under roads where required.
We do not envisage a sky rail.
The extension would follow the route of the old South Gippsland line, which was closed by the Kennett government in the 1990s. Casey Council says it would make a huge difference to residents.
Their dream homes have become nightmares because they're spending 6 or 7 hours a day going to work, running their kids to school, just going to the shops.
But the government has questioned the coalition's costings and its track record.
Who can forget? They promised to deliver Doncaster Rail and did nothing. They promised to deliver Rowville Rail and did nothing. They promised to deliver Avalon Rail and did nothing.
The rail reservation runs through one of the state's more marginal seats. Cranbourne is held by Labor with a margin of just 2.3%. And with sitting MP Jude Pereira retiring, the Liberal Party sees it as a key battleground.
Labor has taken this seat for granted for far too long, and we need so much more investment in infrastructure.
And with the coalition promising construction will start in 2019, Labor may find itself being forced to follow suit.
Trains will be running by this time in 4 years' time.
Andrew Lund, 9 News.
Thank you, Gerard, for putting that up. And again, we'll continue to advocate with my fellow councillors and the community so we can create the most livable city right here in Victoria where all the people are, and that is the city of Casey. So thank you very much for that. Councillor Smith, you had something to say?
Mr Mayor, I'd like to take the opportunity to talk about what's happening in Bunjil this week. This is a huge week for Bunjil Place in terms of the arts and the performances are happening. Tonight, out there, you cannot move out there because it's a sellout performance of the Australian Opera doing Madame Butterfly, and it's the buzz. I've just walked out there a little while ago. The buzz out there is amazing. There are the people from the Australian Opera are bragging, aren't they, Mr Dalton? They're bragging to us about how good the facility is and how, compared to other regional facilities, how we just stand way ahead of all our competitors. Although we're not competitors, we're just alternative venues. there's a program out today. The daytime music program is out for the rest of the year, and there's some really good Beatles concerts. There's Olivia Newton-John, Peter Allen tribute coming up. War songs of the war years. Mr. Mayor Abbott, you'd remember those songs from the war years. And at Christmas time, Ian Stenlake's coming out to do a Christmas concert.
Time's up.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'm very pleased that I'm going to be representing you and the other councils in the opera tonight. I'm really looking forward to that. And Ian is here tonight to do that. We've got coming up on Friday and Saturday. So it's a big week for Bunjil. On Friday and Saturday, we've got the Australian the Australian Ballet doing 3 performances of Coppelia, which again almost sold out. So what a fantastic year! 2 years ago, would you have said the Australian Opera and the Australian Ballet would be appearing in Casey in Narre Warren? And would you have even imagined they'd be here in the same week? It's just a huge week. And on July 31st. Ina's dragging me to Julius Caesar. Belle Shakespeare's coming to do Julius Caesar. I'm not a big fan of Shakespeare, but I'm being dragged along to that night, so I'm sure that's going to be a fantastic performance. So, Mr. Mayor, I encourage councillors to get out there and promote Bunjil. Not that it probably needs promoting; it's doing very well, above expectation in terms of visitation, but we should be getting out there and bragging and telling everyone about it. Very good.
Thank you, Councillor Smith, and thank you for filling in for myself, and no doubt you'll do that extremely well because you love the arts, and thanks to you we've got that. And interesting story, Mr. Dalton was telling me today, a lady walked up to him and said, "Whoever built this is absolute genius," and he said, "Yeah, they were," but he never told her it was actually him. Again, a round of applause for Mr. Dalton sitting here. Very modest, didn't own up to the fact that he built it, but did an outstanding job. So you didn't know I was going to drop that on you, did you? But okay, was there anyone else who wanted to say something while we have suspension of local laws? All right, I now determine that local law be reapplied. Confirmation of minutes. Is there a mover and second to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on Tuesday the 3rd of July? Moved by Councillor Flannery, seconded by Councillor Rowe. Any dissent? That is carried. Declarations of interest. Does any councillor have a conflict of interest or personal interest they wish to declare tonight? Perhaps we bring Councillor Saray back in now, please. All right, so I'm just getting some advice here, sorry. Okay, so she coming in now. Okay.
We can wait for it.
It is in an item of urgent business, but she doesn't know what it is yet, so as soon as I tell her what it is, then she'll declare a conflict of interest, so she can come back in now for the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Have you read the restoration? You've read all the... That means I just declare it immediately before consideration items. Does anyone just confirm if any councillors have any items to declare? She might have gone to take a phone call, I'm not sure.
Oh, look, we'll move on. Yeah. We'll move on. Does any other councillor have a conflict of interest in any items in tonight's agenda? I'll talk to Councillor Saray when that item comes up. We'll move on to officers' reports. People who wish to withdraw items of officers' reports for further discussion. I wish to withdraw item 6.7. Councillor Cristani.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to pull out 6.1 and 6.12.
6.1 and 6.12. Councillor Rowe.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to withdraw item 6.5.
6.5. Councillor Stapleton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to withdraw item 6.8, support for grandparents in Casey.
6.8. Okay. Is there a mover and seconder to adopt the recommendations listed in the officers' reports that have not been withdrawn for further discussion as follows? 6.2, 6.3, 6.4, 6.6, 6.9, 6.10, 6.11, 6.13 and 6.14. Moved by Councillor Gillich, seconded by Councillor Saray. Any dissent on that? And those items are carried. We move now to public question time. Ms Frost, are there any public questions this evening?
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, we have received one question from Alison Ryan. Is Ms Ryan in the chamber? Thank you for your question. The question is, I'm concerned that yoga, the practical side of the Hindu religion, through breathing, body postures, mental relaxation, meditation, is being taught in Casey kindergartens. Why is Casey allowing kinder teachers to teach practical Hinduism yoga in public secular kinders? Equally, why don't Casey kinder teachers ask children to practice the Christian religion? This question will be answered by the Manager, Child, Youth and Family, Ms Lloyd, Virginia Lloyd.
All kindergartens managed by the City of Casey operate under the Education and Care Services National Law Act 2010 and the Education and Care Services National Regulations 2011. City of Casey kindergartens also participate in the National Assessment and Quality Rating process. Currently 91% of Casey managed kindergartens exceed the standards and 9% meet the standards. These regulations ensure that Casey kindergartens are secular and we do not practice yoga as a part of our program. To enforce this, Council's kindergartens are independently reviewed with the Victorian Department of Education and Training, monitoring licensed services for compliance with the Act and regulations and assessing services against the quality standards.
Oh, okay. Right.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor.
Question?
Sorry, there was just a bit of... so we're saying, I just want to confirm that we don't actually endorse yoga.
That's correct.
So this kindergarten may in fact be an independent one, not council controlled, is that right?
So through you, Mr Mayor, I don't know what other services may be providing in terms of program.
Okay, so this is not council prescribed, it is rather the ones who run it. So isn't it council run, or is this referring to?
I'm talking about the City of Casey managed services.
Okay, so perhaps we can go back to them to ask specifics and then perhaps I can assist with them, but just so that we know council was not prescribing that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so what you're asking is, what we're saying is we don't know which kindergarten it is? No. No, okay. So we can find out. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Cristani. Any other questions? That's it? No more public questions this evening. We'll move on to officers' reports that have been withdrawn for further discussion. 6.1, Aboriginal Gathering Place Program funding. Councillor Cristani.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move this recommendation in my name.
Moved by Councillor Cristani, seconded by Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. This is very exciting. When I read the report, I know this isn't on my notes. I thank you very much, Kate, Alison, Michelle, in there over there. This is great. What a quick outcome this was. I'll just stick to my notes. On the 15th of May, an urgent business item was raised detailing that the funding of 2 key positions at the Gathering Place was ceasing as at the 30th of June 2018. As a result of this, letters were written to the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, the Minister for Health and local MPs. The Department of Health and Human Services on the 28th of June informed Council that the funding for these 2 positions has been extended for 6 months until the 31st of December 2018. It was recognised by the Department that this 6 months extension of funding will allow time for planning, continuity of service delivery and staff security. For the City of Casey, the extension ensures Casey's Indigenous residents continue to have access to programs at the Gathering Place until the 31st of December 2018. This will also give Council time to plan and structure the Aboriginal Engagement Unit staffing, timetabling to minimise the impact if ongoing external funding is not sourced over the next 6 months. Council officers will continue to actively explore and identify future directions for government funded initiatives and opportunities for further funding for the Gathering Place, along with opportunities to partner. This is great news. Actually, I didn't read this ahead of time. There you go. This is great news. In closing, I want to give a big plug for the council briefing that will be held at the Gathering Place on Tuesday the 31st of July. The promise is an interactive experiential briefing, and I encourage as many councillors as possible to attend. I think this is great, and it just shows that we really can get some work done quickly, and I think it's important that we have these positions because the Gathering Place is a great success. We will continue to keep lobbying to make sure that this continues into the future. Some great things are happening there, and we'll get to see for ourselves, so I hope all councillors can attend 31st of July and see for yourselves. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Before we move, I think Councillor Flannery, did you want to... are you aware?
Yeah, are you aware? Thank you, Mr Mayor. To the officers who put the report together, a great outcome. The Aboriginal Gathering Place, as I said, Councillor Castani and I have been there. We were on the advisory committee. Great outcome for the residents of the Aboriginal community in the city of Casey, and yeah, I look forward to it continuing for year after year after year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Are there any questions or dissent on the matter? And that is carried. Thank you. We'll move on to item 6.5, Team 11 Special Committee. Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move the recommendation in your name.
Seconded by myself.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's a great pleasure I rise to speak in favour of this motion to establish a special committee in relation to the Team 11 A-League licence application. And I'm very honoured to have been providing it's voted on, nominated to be the representative on this committee. We've all just witnessed the World Cup and held in Russia, and we've seen the fight that our own Australian Socceroos have gone through to reach the World Cup qualify. Unfortunately, to be bowled out in the first round of games. And it's the Team 11 and initiatives like Team 11 being undertaken by the City of Greater Dandenong, City of Casey and the Cardinia Shire that will provide a pathway in this region for young talent that otherwise are not being catered for, to give them the opportunity of not only to go through State League to State League 4, 3, 2, 1 into NPL 2, then NPL, and from there to come into an A-League team. I'm sure that the current A-League teams have scouts, but their scouts tend to look for older players, and their scouts tend to bring in some more overseas players than we'd like to see. And this stymies the growth of youth in soccer. And one of the attractive things in soccer, and this is coming from somebody who played for Waverley Football Club and Oakley Football Club, and then Keysborough Football Club. I changed a few times, I might say have something to do with the fact I wasn't very good. But yeah, I was brought up in Aussie rules. And currently am associated with Dandenong Thunder NPL side. But one of the first things I asked Dandenong Thunder, because of my very funny Australian rules background, when they were hassling Mayor Jim Mamedi to get an electronic scoreboard. And I said, why? Can't you count to 3? They didn't see that as funny. I do keep getting reminded of this. But what this has done, with Dandenong, Cardinia and Casey being one of the most diverse regions in Victoria and Australia, with I think in excess of 160 different languages being spoken within those communities and the accompanying, obviously, nationalities of these people. The one unifying thing about our municipality is everybody wants to play soccer. All of the immigrants want to play soccer. And that is fantastic because it is a unifying game. We have Sudanese, we have Afghanis, we have Chinese playing in the NPL in Dandenong, either it be Dandenong City or Dandenong Thunder. We've got Berwick in the State League, we've got Cranbourne Casey Comets in the State League. And by us sponsoring this A-League licence, we're going to bring the pathway to fruition. We're going to give the youth of this community somewhere to go and play sport. And we've all seen the benefits that sport have on communities in trouble. Aussie Rules has done it since the 1800s. Bring communities together. We see on the weekend Aaliyah and
Magic Door.
Two Sudanese boys playing Aussie Rules. That was absolutely fantastic. Those boys are stars. If we can achieve the same thing with the World Game and bring multitudes of young people into the pathways of soccer, they could actually go from soccer, as some of our better Australian rules footballers have actually gone or come from.
Could I move a 2-minute extension for Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Stapleton? Any dissent? No, that's carried. Continue on.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So, by sponsoring that, we're not only looking for an A-League team, we're looking for a pathway, we're looking for a key to unite people, to make them one. And I think that's what Casey is. Casey is Berwick and Cranbourne and Narre Warren and Clyde, Tooradin, Pearsdale, all of, and Endeavour Hills, all, and Hampton Park, and Lyndhurst and Limbrook, if I missed anything. But there is a heart to this community, and that community was places like Cranbourne, and people know my affinity to Cranbourne. Cranbourne has always had that small town heart. It hasn't died with the influx of multiple people. It has remained a uniting force within Cranbourne, and Councillor Stapleton and I are very proud to be part of that community, and our community are proud to live there. And by establishing the training facilities, the administration facilities, hopefully with state and federal government support at Casey Fields, will mean the pathways begin in Cranbourne. So this is an absolutely fantastic opportunity. This report sets out the governance around bidding for the licence, and it will establish the benefits that we will gain as a community, both Dandenong ourselves and Cardinia will gain as a community from the final successful group.
Got 20 seconds.
I guess I haven't really put my excitement out there, so I won't much. And it really excites me. I'm happy to be part of it, and I thank my council colleagues for nominating me to take this place, and I recommend the motion to councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Let me, on behalf of everyone, thank you for taking up that position. It's a huge position of responsibility as soccer makes its entrance and pathways and everything you said. And you're the right guy because you've been involved with soccer for so long, decades. In fact, you know how it works. You know all the clubs. You know all the people. You're a great fit for our council to represent this huge role, and we congratulate you for it. Are there any questions or dissent on the matter? Then that is carried. Thank you very much. We'll move on to 6.7, which is the report on Casey Equestrian Workshop. I've withdrawn that myself. I'd like to move that in my name. Seconded by Councillor Rosario. Thank you, Councillor Rosario. On the 12th of April 2017, Council held its inaugural Casey Equestrian Workshop, which was well received by the community with 60 registered participants and 33 in attendance due to unforeseen traffic delays. It was one of those nights where there were accidents everywhere and people got held up on the freeway, but I can assure you we were well represented by some of Australia's top riders and horse people right here. Equestrian Victoria were here en masse to listen to the night. The workshop focused on council-run facilities and trails, with guided discussion about what priorities should be for council when making funding decisions. The workshop report, which is available on Casey Conversations, identified strong support from participants for funding a new regional facility for the South East in Casey or a neighbouring municipality, with benefits and challenges identified. Those that attended the event gave positive feedback and were satisfied with the level of engagement. And since that's happened, we have had, I won't go into detail, but on that night there was a real conversation about having a equestrian centre in Casey. There are only 2 EFI level 4 facilities in Australia. One happens to be in Sydney, one happens to be in Adelaide. There's not one in Victoria. Werribee's level 3, it's not level 4, it's not international. And we are having talks at the moment, which would include a venue having show jumping, dressage, cross-country showing, polo, dragging polo up from Sorrento to Casey, and we're going through a process of entertaining that without going into any more detail. And I can tell you now, when I first came here 10 years ago, people were banging on my door, particularly women, and it has as Equestrian Victoria said, it is all about health and well-being, and given women who make up about 85% of equestrian an opportunity to have affordable riding and equestrian experiences this side of Melbourne, not at Werribee if you're coming from Sale or Maffra or wherever, and keeping costs down with a really good business plan. So we are still very passionate about that. Racing makes up about 25% of the horse industry in Casey, believe it or not. Equestrian makes up about 75%. Most of those people are females. We have the best learn to ride people, the Oakwood Riding School, which we're working on keeping their rates down, and have so by keeping them 60% of what they should be, by advocating strongly for them. We have our best coaches out there, and if you go out there, and Councillor Flannery and I still have to go out and have a ride out the Oakwood Riding School. I rang them today, they're booking us in. So we're looking forward to it. And so you've got the best riding school, you've got the best transfer now from racing to equestrian of skill and people of all time. In my time when I grew up, you're either racing or equestrian, and you have people like Greg Urell training racehorses who rode for Australia in show jumping, and that crossover is even happening more today. So we are really wanting to get something here to satisfy the people, to make it a first-class event, to make it level 4, an international event, stadium, to attract the best riders. I've been watching the Tour de France, but I've also got on Foxtel watching the show jumping, and I've just forgotten her long name, hyphenated name, but there's a young Australian girl. She was leading in the final in Paris 2 nights ago. So it's big, and Casey is the capital of equine, and we hope to get something happening. We'll leave it at that, and we thank you, Catherine, for all your work in that space as well, and we'll hopefully hear some good news maybe soon, but we'll leave it at that. So are there any questions or dissent on that matter? Then that is carried. Thanks very much. We'll move now to Councillor Stapleton, support for grandparents in Casey.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that recommendation in my name.
Seconded by Councillor Rowe. What was that, Councillor Smith?
Have I got a conflict in this?
Can we get some advice on that? Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Rowe. Mr Mayor, many grandparents play an active role in caring for their grandchildren in various capacities. Some grandchildren help with after-school care, while others have full-time kinship roles as their primary carer of their grandchildren. Council recognises how important it is that grandparents feel valued and supported with information, resources and programs. Council offers grandparents some great programs already, such as playgroups, the fantastic Dads Matter group, which just was nominated for a really significant award, so I think we haven't heard the upshot of that yet, so fingers crossed that they're the winners, and the Ageing Positively Festival, which is held every year. However, in order to make our residents feel connected and informed, we recognised that it was important to work towards new ways of supporting grandparents. There is a great opportunity for Council to promote these great programs, services and information and bring it all together under the one area. Council officers have created an informative, useful and easy to navigate webpage on the City of Casey website, which we might have a picture of, or do we not? Yeah, we do. Here it is. Fantastic. And it's got, I can assure you, it scrolls all the way down. It's got so many really wonderful topics in there, which I might go through shortly if I've got enough time. On the website there are links and contact details for supports and services. So it's like a one-stop shop, which is really what I was hoping we could achieve. And grandparents will now be able to locate information in the one area by simply searching on the City of Casey website. The page contains information about playgroups, events, and where they can find information about allowances and benefits available to them, which I think is just nothing short of outstanding. This will be of great assistance to our older residents and a small step towards ensuring grandparents in the community can access information with ease. So I'm excited to announce that council officers, and can I please thank Ms. Sayre and also Michelle. Thank you to you and your team, to Mr. Coldham. Absolutely, job well done. Absolutely fantastic outcome. So I'd like to thank the council officers who have organised a new event to be held in Ageing Positively Week this year. The event will bring together grandparents and their grandchildren for a free kids show at Bunjil Place Theatre. This will help to give grandparents special bonding time with their grandchildren, as well as an opportunity to connect with other community members and enjoy some social time together. I just wanted to point out a couple of things that I noticed in the report. This was a beautifully written report and it really correlates very well with the wonderful one-stop shop we've got on the website. Council officers also identified recent interest amongst the Indian and Sri Lankan communities to have a grandparents group operate out of the Salandra Community Hub. What a fantastic outcome. I mean, this is really about breaking down the isolation, giving support to grandparents who, I know so many who actually have their grandchildren in their care full time. They have to battle a lot of issues around fractured families, and to maintain that level of stability and care for their grandchildren while all that turmoil's going on is very hard on them and very hard on the kids. So how fantastic that we've even identified a new area that we hadn't thought about. And I know that we've written to the federal and state government because I believe grandparents who have children in their care full time should be remunerated as a carer would be, because they are actually in their sunset years, if you like, and certainly haven't got a great income necessarily. They'll be relying on a pension perhaps, or on their superannuation benefits, and here they are with 1, 2, 3 children looking after them, and that is very, very expensive, and it's also very, very tiring. As much as they love their grandkids, that's why they're doing it, but it's very, very draining on all of their resources. So an absolutely fantastic outcome, but I do have a question for Ms. Sayre, if that's okay. One of the things that I was really conscious of when I raised this notice of motion was around grandparents unable to see their grandchildren. It's the saddest thing, and it's often, a calamity for the children, but as well as the grandparents, when there are marriage breakups. Marriage breakups are very, very sad, and the children do suffer, but also the grandparents, because very often they don't get to see the kids. So I wondered if there was some investigation you could do to see if there are any links to support groups. I know of one in WA, but I'm sure there are others that we could link, put on our website to link in with, link families, grandparents in with if they need it. So
through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we're very happy to do that.
Thank you very much. Look, I'd like to commend the officers for their work. This is beautifully done, and it's with our grandparents in the City of Casey in mind and their dear grandchildren, and they do a mighty job, and they're an unrecognised resource, and I really, really want to acknowledge just how much we appreciate what our grandparents do and the council officers who are bringing this all together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stable. Are there any questions or dissent on the matter? Then that is carried. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. Thanks very much. We'll move now to 6.12, Conservation Advisory Committee. Councillor Cristani.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to remove the recommendation of my name, but add, it's a third dot point. So thank you to our council support for adding that. So perhaps if Councillor Rosario was seconding that.
Are you happy with what you've got there? Are you ready for a seconder?
Yes, I'm ready for a seconder.
Seconded by Councillor Rosario.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll give the opportunity for my colleagues just to read just the added dot point. I'll just be brief. Basically, due to conflicting commitments, as it says there, I've opted to step down from the committee with a bit of sadness, actually, at this time anyway. I thank the officers very much, the Chair, Councillor Rosario, who's stepped into the shoes of Councillor Moreland quite well. So thank you very much for doing that. We have Robin Zeddens in the gallery tonight. Robin has been a long-standing member of the committee, and all of the members. I won't name them all because I'll forget someone, but since you're here, I will name you. But thank you to the officers, particularly Nicola Ward and Simon King and the other supporting officers for their work. And this is a long-standing committee, 20 years we're talking about, maybe more, yeah. And I've been with the committee for most of my term and last term, and I think it would be good if someone steps in. I did ask my colleagues yesterday, and I haven't given them enough time, but if they want to join the Conservative Committee, and I think the misspelling just threw everyone off. So apparently we don't have any other political persuasions, but no, but definitely we have a variety of people on that committee from different walks of life, and each bring a particular perspective and from various parts of Casey. So we have the subcommittees, heritage, sustainability, and I'm missing one, Mr. Chair, of the, which one am I missing? Sustainability, heritage, and anyway, we've got one more. So sorry. But we on the committee, we've addressed a variety of issues, and it's just amazing to see what skill is applied and what different ideas come up. And I know that there is good hard work that's done on this committee. And I'll be up front, I was a bit sceptical when I first joined about what would occur if there's any sort of political stuff that they actually do good work to look after the environment, and I hope that this thrives and keeps moving from strength to strength. And I did say that I would keep an eye on the minutes, and I will keep supporting the committee and what they have to offer. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cristani. Councillor Rosario, did you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, tonight you're aware. And I also actually rise to thank Councillor Cristani for her work. And I know this is not an easy decision to make, and it caught us all by surprise when we found out about it, because Rosie has been a great supporter, and actually you've been on the committee for your entire term up until now, because you and I started together in the first year that we became councillors, and we've carried on that tradition since. And you and I and the Mayor obviously make up this year's committee as well as the representatives. And the work that you've done, your commitment, your passion and your support for the committee, and I know they'll feel the same way, and they did on the night, and they told me so, which is we appreciate everything that you do, and our door's always open to you, so please come and visit the family anytime. You are a part of that family. And we really will miss you and your input and your thoughts, and it is a great loss to us, but we will try to do our best without you, but please do stay in touch with us, and we completely understand.
Very gracious.
Thank you very much for that. Otherwise, I will touch on the committee itself, and look, we have some great meetings, and environment is one of those things where people do it, and you said it, Councillor Cristani, earlier. It's people who are passionate and are interested, and they come from all different walks of life, and they come together because they want to do something good for the environment, whether it's the sustainability, the heritage, or hard waste, etc. They come and they contribute their skills, and so we honour that through the minutes and acknowledge that. And most recently as well, we had the Youth Action Committee come and present to the committee, and then what we had was young people who were showing us their environmental initiatives and how that fed into to things that we do, and we were able to network and say, well, if these young people are interested in getting involved, would they be interested in joining the committee? Or other committees, perhaps in the City of Casey that we have, where these young people can contribute their skills. So it was a really great discussion around just that networking aspect, as well as understanding what they do as a group. So really good. Also great to have the support of Nicola Ward and the team, as Councillor Cristani said. Without the passion of our officers, we don't have what we have today, which is our strategies to protect our environment. The committee is so well resourced that we're able to action things so effectively and efficiently now. It's actually, it would make Councillor Moreland really proud, I would think, if he was here. He'd really love the way that we've taken the committee to the next level. So I congratulate the committee. I congratulate Councillor Cristani again. Thank you so much for everything that you've done for us. And again, we will miss you.
Thank you, Councillor Rosario. Are there any questions or dissent on the matter? Then that is carried. Thanks, Catherine. That is the conclusion of officers' reports that have been withdrawn for further discussion. We'll move on to consideration of reports of committees. Is there a mover and seconder to receive and note the record of Assembly of Councillors as listed in the agenda? Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Cristani. Is there any dissent? That is carried. Thank you. Is there a mover and seconder to confirm the recommendations of the General Purposes Committee meeting held on Tuesday the 10th of July 2018? Moved by Councillor Stapleton, seconded by Councillor Cristani. Is there any dissent on that issue? Oh, sorry, that recommendation? No, that is carried. Is there a mover and seconder to note the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting held on Tuesday the 10th of July 2018? Moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Gillich. Any dissent on that matter? Then that is carried. We'll move on to petitions. Are there any petitions or joint letters that councillors wish to present this evening? Councillor Cristani, and I'll ask you how many signatures you have.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have 52.
52.
Thank you. I'll just allow my... I'm happy to get a seconder now, so... moved by myself.
Moved by Councillor Cristani, seconded by Councillor Gillich.
Thank you. Mr Mayor, I'd like to table this petition of 52 signatories. A resident, I'll just name him by his first name, Ken, of Penhurst Street in Narre Warren. He gathered a petition in his local area, and I think there's some photos, hopefully, if we can have a look through. I'll just give a bit of perspective on it. Thank you. I only just sent them through this afternoon, so excellent work. So the concern is from himself and local residents and surrounding. In fact, what I'll do is I'll read the petition and we can look at the photos at the same time if you like. The petition is from this gentleman, and it's to the Mayor and the councillors of the City of Casey, it's the Casey City Council. The following petitioners draw the attention of the Council to London plane trees in Penhurst Street, Narre Warren and surrounding streets. These trees were planted around 1995 and have damaged council infrastructure, footpaths and curb and channel and private property due to root invasion. The life expectancy of footpaths which are not subject to root damage is approximately 40 years. The footpaths were repaired in 2013 and 2014, less than 20 years since the trees were planted, and further damage is now evident. These trees can continue to grow to 30 metres in height, which means that further ongoing damage is imminent, which will result in further ongoing maintenance, repairs and pruning costs which are borne by ratepayers. This may also result in a number of claims against council for root damage to private property. Ken continues, he says, as these trees are also known to cause allergic reactions, and in view of the foregoing facts, it is respectfully suggested that these trees are considered to be unsuitable in this suburban environment. Therefore, the following petitions hereby request that these trees be removed and that suitable trees that do not damage council infrastructure or private property be planted in their place to avoid further long-term unnecessary maintenance cost and further potential claims in regard to private property. So if I just go back to the photos, I'll try not to be too long. Just to show you, so obviously some are on private property, and I'm presenting what has been given to me. So until it's substantiated, I'm just presenting it as the residents have requested. There is alleged that their roots are growing out from these trees and are lifting footpaths and roads and going into lift drains and things like that. And as you can see, we'll go forward and just flip through them again. So these are surrounding Penhurst. London plane trees are known to cause damage in the city and in other locations, and there's understanding that it could be, so just to give you an idea, as you can see there. So I'm doing, giving the courtesy to the residents to raise this. This certainly isn't an isolated issue, alleged isolated issue. And so it's something that I thank Mr Mayor for hearing me, because I did contact you about this and said, oh sorry, that was probably me sending sideways photo. Yeah, that's the boulevard there, and it doesn't look very imposing actually, but when you consider the genus of the tree and the fact that what they have the potential to do. So this represents a wider issue of perhaps, and I have spoken to officers, there is legacy trees, because now we've certainly got a rigorous program that deals with problem trees, but now we're dealing with legacy trees, so we have to go back and fix some problems on nature strips and that. Thanks, that's enough for the photos. But to just briefly on that, Councillor Moreland actually raised this with regards to the Timbara estate, which I know these massive gum trees on these absolutely itty-bitty nature strips. And of course from there it was increased to have a tree removal fund that is right across Casey, but it's on limited funds. It'd cost $2,000 to remove a tree and to replant. That's a lot of money, of ratepayers' money. And so, of course, when you're dealing with hundreds, possibly thousands of trees that may be problems, we're looking at replacing them for sure where we can. So we have a priority listing, and the waiting list is very long. And of course, to replant something appropriate and something that's agreed upon. And I did mention today that, of course, some residents don't want the boulevard on their street to be affected. They don't want the canopy to be affected, but then others do because it drops leaves and branches and things like that. So it is this balancing act between safety issues and
tuition extension.
Just 1 minute, is that all right?
1 minute, I'll move it. Second by
Thank
Councillor Gillich. Any dissent? That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So I know there's some other issues too, for instance, whether we should remove trees and about revegetation. And I know that there's some great ideas coming out about other ways that we can maintain and preserve vegetation. So it's something that I'd like to address. So when the report comes back, we could perhaps proceed to look into this a bit further. But for now, this deals with Narrowwarra and Penhurst Street and the surrounding streets. I thank you for the officers for their time, and I know that this is the #1 issue I get called on and emailed about trees in the Four Oaks ward. Councillor Gillich would agree with me. And perhaps most of my colleagues with trees has been in my top 3 for ever since I've been a councillor. So something I think we should keep on and always keep reviewing. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cristani. And one of the great things that we had a chat about today. No? Do you want to go before me?
No, you go.
No. One of the great things we did, we had a conversation with Mr Richardson and Mr Dalton, Mr Fitchett, yourself, and now Councillor Gillich is aware that we had a general conversation about trees, nature strip trees being for nature, and how we can grow things. So hopefully when the report comes back, the investigation goes on, is when we're looking at larger trees, we spoke about not being on nature strips, but we've already identified a massive heap of land that can be reforested with large bushland to really make a huge footprint for environment for our flora and fauna to go there, particularly the growling frog and the orange-bellied parrot. I hear there's only 17 left in the wild, and also the southern brown bandicoot. So then the conversation went on to even more areas that we could identify, but very, very large areas of bushland from nature strip trees, which Councillor Cristani brought up. So from a little conversation ended up a really big one. So I look forward to the report coming back, and big things will happen because of what you brought up. So are there any further... Oh, sorry.
No, I'm okay now.
You're okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any further questions or any dissent on the matter? Then that is carried. Thanks very much. Are there any other petitions which... Councillor Flannery, you have a petition. How many signatures might you have?
17, Mr Mayor.
17 signatures. Thank you. Want to put up some recommendations?
Yes, Mr Mayor. I just want to put up a recommendation that a report comes back to council on the matter.
I'll just get a seconder maybe. Seconder for Councillor Flannery. Councillor Rosario.
Yeah.
Okay, you may proceed.
Yeah, we can just get a report that comes back to council on the matters raised in the petition, and that the head petitioner be notified.
And can you just explain what the petition's about?
Yeah, the head petitioner rang myself, and I went around with a couple of council officers. In the master plan, there was discussions about where we're going to put a dog park in Berwick Springs Estate, and the head petitioner said that she has a fear of dogs, and that the dog park should be removed from the place that the council officers have decided to put it. So what the officers are going to do is they're going to have a look at other parts of the wetlands and talk to Melbourne Water to see whether we can move the dog park to a different area, or whether it stays where it is. what happens is a damned if you do, damned if you don't moment. Some people want a dog park, some people don't want a dog park. You know, we take in consideration that people do have fears of dogs, and you know, whether it's their fear or whether it's you know, it impacts on their view, and people believe that it might affect their the selling of their houses by having an area of beauty and then taken up by dogs barking during the day or even late in the evening. Those are the things that it's like just having a bus stop put outside your house. You know, nobody wants it outside their place, but you've got to put it somewhere. But you know, the residents in the master plan that everybody says they want a dog park, so you know, you've got to try and come up with the best compromise for all residents. And the head petitioner, we're certainly going to do our best to see if we can arrange for a different area for the dog park, and that the report will come back to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Are there any questions or dissent on the matter? Then that is carried. Thank you. We move on to notices. Oh, sorry, are there any other petitions for this evening? No, thank you. We'll move on to notices of motion. Councillor Rosario, request for school crossing supervisor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that in my name, please, and then I'll explain.
Moved by Councillor Rosario, seconded by Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Mr. Mayor, I've actually got a petition here, but it's or a joint letter rather, or both. But I've moved it as a motion because it's actually signed by children. So it's a really lovely initiative, and we received this lovely letter from a grade 5 student named Joanna, who goes to St. Francis de Sales primary school in Limbrook. But she writes a very intellectually accurate letter as well. She's done a lot of research into this, essentially about asking for a crossing supervisor for her school, and she lists down the safety aspects of why they need one, and the letter goes on to justify the reasons for that. And she mentions here because traffic moves very quickly and drivers are not always paying attention to children. And they also go on to, and she goes on to talk about people with disabilities trying to cross the road, and if cars are moving very fast, these people can't get out of the way soon enough. So, and she also talks about visitors as well, people who walk through during peak times because they're going to the train station, which is right next door. So she has really thought about, in a very big picture look, and also at the detail about the issues there. And so she advocates for that crossing supervisor, and she has a number of signatures that have also been provided as part of a petition, Mr. Mayor, which is great to see so many young people interested in the safety of themselves as well as their fellow students and visitors and people. And there's some pictures as well. So I just congratulate them, and I think that what we should do, Mr. Mayor, with council support, is to just look at the feasibility for a report to come back just to let us know how that went, and also to write to Joanna and just to thank her for her initiative. I think it's really great to see young people stand up, especially at that age, and really start to look at the world around them. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rosario. Are there any questions or dissent on the matter? Then that is carried. There are no reports by council delegates. Now we're going to move to urgent business. So, Councillor Saray, you don't know what is in the urgent business, so we'll ask the nature of it, and then you can decide. Councillor Stapleton, you had some urgent business. Is it of an advocacy nature? No. Okay, so you're pretty right with that one, but I think with mine, you will. Okay, would you like to raise yours now, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to raise an item of urgent business, and it's urgent because of the detrimental impact that it's having on one of our wonderful local businesses in Cranbourne.
Moved by Councillor Stapleton, seconded by Councillor Rowe. Any dissent on it being admitted as urgent? No, then that is carried. You may continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And just for the benefit of anyone that might be looking on Facebook, which I believe the owners of the Amazing Grace are on the internet at the moment, if I could just read out the wording.
We'll read that and we'll get a second, and then you can introduce it if you like. Yep.
Yeah, is that okay?
Does anyone need any more time to read?
I wanted to read it out, if you don't mind.
Read it out before you get a seconder?
Yep.
That's fine.
Yep, thank you. There's 3 points. The first being that Council agrees to write to SP AusNet seeking an understanding of the timelines in upgrading the power supply from the street side to the Amazing Grace in Cranbourne from 80 amps to 180 amps. And number 2 is that Council further advocate to the Honourable Lily D'Ambrosio, MP, Minister for Energy and Environment and Climate Change, if lengthy delays are anticipated. And could I just change that slightly? Could I put if further lengthy delays? If further? Thank you. And the final is that the outcome of this come back to Council by the first Council meeting in August. And we'd better put this year, 2018, if you don't mind.
Okay. Do you wish to get a seconder now? Councillor Rowe, you may now introduce.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I was attending a fabulous thank you lunch with the Cranbourne Football Club on Saturday when I ran into Paul and Vanessa from the Amazing Grace. They are 2 absolutely incredible people. I think we've got some photos of them. We did have. I think Mr Cresta's got some photos for us. Yep, fantastic. And they actually advised me of quite a dilemma. Oh, just to let my fellow councillors know that this is the lengths that they've gone to get behind the Commit to Casey. There's Vanessa there. She's put signs up all around the Amazing Grace. They've got cards and brochures inside the venue, and they actually are going to get some bumper stickers as soon as I can get those to them. So that was today. They actually set that up today, and they've been chasing me actively to get behind this campaign, and I think how fantastic are they? And that's the kind of people that they are. It's the kind of venue that we're talking about here. But what Paul told me concerned me greatly. He said that an application went in quite some time ago to upgrade the ampage from the street to Amazing Grace, which would allow them to connect some really terrific sustainable heating. To date, that hasn't occurred. Now, we're talking months. And this is a really significant impact to the business. Plus, they're trying to do the right thing by the environment as well, which I think we need to be very conscious of. And the beauty of being on council is that we can get in and advocate for our businesses, for our community members, for our residents. And in this case, it's a wonderful business, something that we're really trying to foster in the Cranbourne area. We've got so many wonderful businesses trying to help them to grow. And also to encourage others to come in. So if the other businesses were to hear that they couldn't get an upgrade of their power if it were required, I'm quite sure that would be enough to turn them off. This is very, very frustrating for the business. They are going ahead in leaps and bounds in terms of patronage and the wonderful food and drink that they do serve and the beautiful atmosphere and the heating, but they really need to get these other heaters connected and they're not able to do so. So I put this forward for my fellow councillors to support. I saw the photos. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stable. Are there any questions or dissent on the matter? Then that is carried. Thank you very much. Now, I have an item of urgent business which is to do with advocacy, Councillor Saray. So, Councillor Saray? It's just one you might need to... It's to do with advocacy in relation to Commit to Casey, so...
I have a conflict of interest because I'm a political candidate for the election.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to move this matter as urgent because it's an immediate response to our advocacy campaign to matters that happened last week. I'd like to move that in my name. Seconded by Councillor Flannery. Is there any dissent? Thank you. Then it's been moved into urgent business. I'd like to put up the recommendation, which I'd like to move in my name. Seconded by Councillor Stapleton. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The Council agreed to rights of Minister of Public Transport and Daniel is outlining the community needs for the extension of the Cranbourne line to Clyde and the government to match the commitment of the Victorian opposition to the report come back to Council from the Minister's office and the Premier's office once it's been received. This is what I spoke about earlier in the night. We really desperately need the current state government to match what the opposition has put on the table as far as one of the biggest, largest infrastructure ventures that's going to happen in the city of Casey, which would really be of huge benefit to the city of Casey. Is there any dissent or questions on the matter? Then that is carried. Thanks very much. We might. Can someone ask Councillor Saray to come back in, please?
Yeah, unless there are any other items of urgent.
Are there any other items of urgent business? We'll just ask Councillor Saray if she has one when she comes back in. Councillor Saray, do you have any items of urgent business? No. No. Okay, that concludes our council meeting for this morning, and I'll just get some advice on where our briefings are being, two briefings are being conducted next door. So that's the end of our meeting, and councillors will meet next door. Thanks very much.
Headache City.
Thanks, Sharon.